With me here today, our State Board of Immigration Enforcement Executive Director Anthony Coker, Attorney General James Uthmeyer, Commissioner Wilton Simpson, Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingolia, Dave Kerner, Highway Safety Motor Vehicle, and Mark Glass, FDLE. We also have Kevin Guthrie, Division of Emergency Management. You know, it's a good year when you don't see as much of him in the summertime, and I think we're all very happy. I like him. He does a good job, but I really don't want to be spending hours on end with him during hurricane season. It's much better when you don't have one, and so we're thankful that that happened. And you know, we knew kind of as you got into like the end of October most likely, but I'd never say anything because the minute I say something, then they're there. But now we can say, you know, we got through that very well. But of course, he's also has been spearheading the logistics involved with our immigration enforcement efforts. We also have Reps Michael and Brannon, and I want to thank them for what they've done. Now, this isn't our first time here at Baker Correctional Institute. When we opened the deportation depot, we did an event. We talked about how that was going to be a force multiplier for federal immigration enforcement efforts. We also did one in southern Florida at the Alligator Alcatraz site, and it's the same theory. When we started last year, we had President Trump coming back into office with a pledge to enforce immigration laws, secure the border. People here illegally would be returned to their home country. But we knew that they were not going to be able to do that successfully without support from state and local law enforcement. It just doesn't work. They didn't have enough people. I know they've got more money now, but they didn't at the time. So I pushed very hard at a special session of the legislature to be able to get the tools so that Florida would be leading the way. And we were the first state to act legislatively. We were the first state to do these 287G agreements with the Department of Homeland Security. And we're the first, and I think still only state, that requires state and local law enforcement in the state to participate and assist DHS's immigration enforcement efforts. And so today, so as part of those relationships, in April of 2025, the state of Florida joined with the Department of Homeland Security to establish Operation Tidal Wave. And it was state efforts to be a force multiplier to assist with the identification, apprehension, and then the feds would return the illegal aliens back to their home country. So today, I can announce that Operation Tidal Wave is now hit over 10,000 arrests of illegal aliens who have been turned over to the Department of Homeland Security. Of those, 63% had criminal arrests or convictions, including violent offenders and sex offenders, although you don't have to have committed a crime to be subject to immigration enforcement. If you've come illegally, that is the offense. And so, of course, people can enforce the law. But it does show that some of these folks have been involved in a lot of really, really bad stuff. So there's no other state that has been able to do anything approaching what the state of Florida has been able to do. And Operation Tidal Wave's over 10,000, but then if you look at the other efforts of the counties combined, you know, we're close to 20,000 arrests that have occurred just in the last year, and actually less than the last year, because the Trump administration didn't come in until January 20th. We didn't get our legislation passed until sometime in February because the initial one was not a good legislation. So we insisted on good. We got that, I think, in February, and then we had to spin up the 287G and do that. So there was a little bit of things that we had to do to get us there. So those are really, really big numbers. And there's not another state in the country that is even close in terms of this level of participation. So we've led. It's been very effective. This deportation depot, you know, they have flights going out. You know, they've had a bunch of flights. They have flights going out of Alligator Alcatraz. The tempo has picked up. We now, at each one of those facilities, the federal government has stationed an immigration judge at both Baker and those and Alligator Alcatraz. Now, these aren't Article 3 judges. They're not real judges. they're executive branch employees whose function is to serve to adjudicate immigration claims. Now, the problem that the federal government has is a lot of these people have been told come across the border illegally, then claim asylum. So these are, 90-some% are bogus asylum claims, and that attaches a certain amount of process. Congress should really clean that up. I don't know why Congress would allow that to be abused the way it's been abused, but it's been abused very, very badly. So they have this. They got to navigate this. So you now have one here. You have one in South Florida, and that's been able to speed up the process. And our goal is, we want people here as little as possible. And the goal is not to create a long-term facility, and that's not the function. The function is they don't have enough bed space at DHS in Florida. And honestly, they have very little in Florida compared to other states. It's pretty incredible per capita how little. And I know they're trying to expand it. But our function is, rather than release folks on the street, that will have an ability, they can be processed, and then the law can be enforced. And we're going to continue to be supportive of that. Now, I also hope that eventually we won't need a deportation depot, right? Because, if the feds could handle this by themselves and they had enough space to do it, then fine. We'll still help. But I would love for them to have more space to be able to do it. So, but what we've done has been effective. What we've done has made a big impact. And if other states were doing even a fraction of what Florida was doing, the national efforts would be all that much more stronger. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. Now, we have our cabinet here, and they put something in the legislation to create this immigration board. You're going to hear from Anthony. And, I didn't think it was necessary, and I don't think it's necessary. But I think the reason they did it is because they wanted there to be someone in cabinet could throw sand in the gears maybe and make it more difficult. And nothing has been further from the truth. Everybody on the cabinet has worked very hard to make sure that Florida was leading the way on this. And I'm proud that we've been able to do that. We've got folks that are now overseeing there. We had Larry Keefe, who did a really good job. We have Kevin with Department of Emergency Management helping with the logistics. FDLE and Highway Patrol have done great work on this, both in tidal wave and then also in other parts of that. Just think about it. You're on the highway. You have somebody that's here illegally, doesn't have a valid license, because you don't get a license in Florida if you're here illegally. You're not eligible. Doesn't have license, doesn't have insurance, and is out there driving drunk. To just put them back on the street like Biden was doing, how is that keeping the people of Florida safe? So now Highway Patrol, they're working like clockwork to be able to make sure that we have accountability there. So they've done a really good job. We also have had people even in more non-law enforcement agencies, like the Department of Lottery. They have 287G agreements. It's pretty incredible that we've really gone that extensive and that deep. We also have a number of sheriffs throughout the state. Now, all 67 counties have 287G agreements. I would say the zealousness in enforcement is not uniform across 67 counties. And I know the Attorney General monitors that. And if he's able to identify where people are breaching duties, that could end up on my desk, and that could require some action or give me the ability to do some action. But we've had some that have done a really, really good job, and so I want to recognize them. Same thing with the police departments. We've had some that have done really well. We have some that are not violating the law, but they're not doing as much as they should be doing. And that's just a question of really political leadership. You have some people that get elected, and they know they can't cross the line and frustrate, so they know they have certain duties, and so they try to do that as minimal as possible. We're watching all this. We're watching politicians say they're going to tear up 287G agreements. They're not going to cooperate. Well, you have the freedom to make those judgments, but we also have the responsibility to make sure that the law's enforced. But we have had great support from local overall for both the county and the city level, and that's why you see the numbers that you see today. So, there's so many times that people do different things. You'll see these politicians in Washington all the time, the congressmen, they'll put out press releases, but nothing ever happens, right? And so, we fought hard on this, It was obviously a salient issue in the 2024 election because our border was wide open. And you saw a lot of problems. And, Cayenne can speak from experience, having lost a son to an illegal alien crime. And this really does impact a lot of people's communities. So it was a pressing issue. But at the same time, it's like, okay, make us stink about it, talk about it, and then what? Nothing gets done. That's not how we roll here in Florida. When we set out to do something, we're going to make sure that we're going to be able to deliver results on that. And so these are great results. I think they're going to get even better going forward because I think DHS is in a better posture, and I think that they have more resources now, and I think it's going to be more effective. Final thing I'll say is, these numbers are what they are. This does not include, if the federal government is just doing something on their own since they have primary responsibility, we're not including that in these numbers. And so they've obviously done things on their own. We're also not including self-deportations. And we know just from the Florida's program where you can get a plane ticket, we've had about 1,000 people that have voluntarily returned for their home country. That's just through our program. I think it's more when you count people that did it on their own, way more, or in conjunction with the federal government. So there's a whole host of things that are going on here, but these are real metrics. This is real progress, and I think you're going to see the momentum continue going forward. So thanks to everybody who's going to be involved. All right, we're going to